It was just a cathartic way to just process it and explore it and think about it. And it just resonated. It just hit like that nerve with people where they were like, yep, this is hard AF, and let's have some humor about it. Let's not take it all so seriously.
I'm Anne Marie McQueen, journalist and proud 50-ish woman, and we are here looking for the true truth in perimenopause, menopause, midlife, and beyond.
Opening our minds to other possibilities is not always easy.
Hot flashing.
You're all woman to me. All right, Anne Marie.
Hi there. Welcome to the Hot Flashing podcast. I'm very excited today because I'm speaking to someone who I've been watching on Instagram. Jessica Barac is a registered nutritionist, personal trainer, and founder of What the Menopause, a women's health platform of more than 950,000 women globally. You've probably laughed at her memes on menopause, and that's how I came to know What the Menopause. They're truly funny. After struggling in perimenopause in her late 30s and not being able to get support through traditional healthcare, Jessica made it her mission to crack the perimenopause code and feel vibrant. Fast forward to today, and she has educated millions of women through her content and created a proven approach rooted in science that helps women improve symptoms, achieve sustainable fat loss, and step into their most powerful era yet by addressing metabolic dysfunction and inflammation through nutrition, movement, and lifestyle. Welcome, Jessica.
Thank you for speaking to me. It's really exciting. I've been laughing along with you and watching you. And when did you start on Instagram?
I launched about, I guess it was around February 2022.
Okay.
I did not expect it to grow like it did, honestly. At the beginning, I was navigating my own journey and then just going through processing what I was going through, and at the same time learning and educating myself, the account, etc. And it was just at that time when it was being talked about, but obviously not at the degree that it is now. And yeah, it just really took off.
You showed actually funny things, right? Up until then, most of the memes had been terrible and I hated it. I actually hated almost everything I saw. It wasn't funny. And so you started with memes basically, right? You started with funniness.
I started with, it was a mixture of expert and it was education and memes. And then what I found was that because I just wanted to create a space on the internet where women felt seen and validated and just celebrated. And so there wasn't really anything else like that. People weren't really creating, it's everywhere now, but people weren't really creating content in that way. And it was so much fun. It was so much fun. I was just like, and it was very cathartic, to be honest. And it was just a cathartic way to just process it and explore it and think about it. And it just resonated. It just hit like that nerve with people where they were like, yep, this is hard AF, and let's have some humor about it. Let's not take it all so seriously.
Oh yeah, you came along at just the right time. And what do you think people find the funniest?
The funniest. Anything with finding your husband irritating AF that goes down very well. But it's so true. It's the things that you find yourself doing and nobody really has called it out before. And then you're like, oh yeah, that is literally me. Like people will be like, why? I feel offended. Like you're basically peering into my home and watching what I'm doing.
And is it freaky when you get that big, like when you have that many eyeballs on your stuff?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have a very strange relationship with it. I find it very nerve-wracking, honestly, to have eyeballs on me like that. And at the same time, the way I like to think about it is this is serving women. Like women, it's connecting with women that may not have connected in any other way with menopause education or menopause in general, perimenopause. And also their partners, like they're able to send content to their husband or their friends. And it's a very easy way to start a conversation and to enter into this world of just what the F is happening.
Do you ever get anyone who's cranky about it?
I've definitely had people, yeah, for sure. And I've put so many things out there, and some of them have not hit the mark. And and it's all a learning. And yes, definitely. There's been some that haven't hit the mark. I've probably taken some down and been like, that's probably pushing it a little bit too far. That's what it is, isn't it? It's just, it's testing really. With social media, it's like putting things out there, seeing what resonates, and then doubling down on it. If doubling down on what resonates with people, and yeah, that's a way to obviously grow, but also it shows you what people are interested in and what people want to know more about.
And as for you, you were going through your own perimenopause journey in your late 30s. Did you realize what was happening?
Yeah. No, I didn't. It was scary. And now that after looking back and being like, oh my God, like you connect the dots, and you would know this because from your story, you've experienced the same thing. But for me, I have always been very bubbly, ambitious, motivated, love people. And I just found myself in this place of just like, what's happened to me? Meeting up with friends and just being like, I'm just not funny anymore. People don't want to hang out with me. Just completely loss of confidence. This is not me at all. And not even that, but just like apathy, like just waking up and being like, why am I bothering? What am I doing with my life? This is and just that the anxiety and the panic attacks, like I'd never experienced anything like that before. And it was shocking to the system and scary, because you're questioning, is this my life from now on? Is this my future that I've got to look forward to? What on earth is going on? And so then when I connected the dots, and because my husband literally said to me, you have to do something about this. Whatever is wrong with you, go and get tests, go to the doctor, figure it out, because the whole family is being impacted by this. Like I was snapping at the kids, drinking too much, like it was all of those things. And the doctor, bless them, they work so hard, but they were so unhelpful. And just, no, I had all the tests, everything was normal, which was so frustrating. And just you're left thinking, okay, what is it? What is actually wrong with me? And then when I noticed my cycle change, that was really the penny dropping. And then speaking to my mom about it, and she was like, oh yeah, I went through menopause early, like in my early 40s. And I was like,
Yeah, that would have been
at the same time, like,
that would have
relief.
been, yeah, that would have been great to know. Yeah, it's funny
Yes.
because I would say I didn't even know I was in perimenopause for so long, but then when I found out I was, it was very relieving. It didn't make anything 100% better, but
No.
it was just nice to know, because I think you're dying a lot of the time, or something's like not dying, but like there's something drastically wrong with you. You just need to find it.
And it's not dying, it's feeling dead inside.
Yeah.
It's that feeling of something within me has changed and it feels dead.
Yeah.
It's that very, very ugly feeling. And the amount of women that just are really struggling and don't have the education, or they're going through with these really negative thoughts, very deep depression and suicidal thoughts, suicidal ideation, and having no idea that it's hormone related. And that for me is terrifying. And that is why it's so important that this conversation has exploded in the way it has, in just that it's bringing attention to what's actually happening with women.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing with what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to bring into the world is it's just helping women connect those dots of, yes, it can be anxiety. Yes, it can be low mood. Yes, it can be all of those crazy symptoms that we all now have heard about. But women don't connect the dots between their dry mouth or their tinnitus or their itchy ears or their dry eyes or their frozen shoulder to perimenopause, to their hormones.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just that, and thank God that so many people are talking about it now. It's great that the word is getting out there.
The world over. What did you do to help yourself once you figured out what was going on?
Yeah, I'm such a nerd when it comes to just like focusing it, because I'm a nutritionist. And so it was really very much, okay, it's a relief because there's obviously something I can do about this. And so and I'd been pretty healthy. I was plant-based for a long time. I was drinking too much alcohol, and it did really I had to stop. It got to the point where I was just like, menopause calls on you to have a very good, hard look at yourself if you're willing to do it. And for me, that was, this is not serving your life. Like drink alcohol is, it's not serving you. It is making everything way worse. You're not showing up for your family in the way that you should. You're not showing up for the self in the way that you should. If you continue down this road, like this is not going to be good. And so I made the decision, I'm just going to completely stop drinking. And that was a huge benefit for me. And then it's the obvious things like I wasn't eating enough protein, like none of us were, and lots of colorful foods. And then just movement. I see movement as much for your physical health as for your mental health. And even now that I know, like I have all the education, you have all the education, but there are those weeks that you find yourself like, I haven't got out for a walk today, or I haven't done my strength training. And my mental health suffers so much, and my sleep suffers, my
So much. So
exactly.
much.
Yes. And so then you're like, this movement is literally just to hold my life together. This is like the glue that's like keeping me held together. And so it's just, it's everybody speaks about it as a toolkit, and that's exactly what it is. And sometimes some things really help, sometimes other things really help. But if I find myself very anxious, which has been the main symptom that I struggled with, I have to ask myself, like, how have you been sleeping? Have you been posting content late at night and you've gone to sleep late? Or how have you gone for your walk? Have you lifted weights? Have you done the things that you need to do to look after yourself and your health? And that's what I'd love women to start to do, is that so many of the symptoms that we have, you can actually connect it back to a lot of triggers. There's so many things that we're doing on a daily basis that are either like causing our perimenopause symptoms to be worse, or helping us to just feel more, I'm not going to say in control, but helping us to manage it better. Because I'm never going to say you like point a magic wand and you're like, oh, I'm like perfect again, because it's a process. And some days it's good and sometimes it's not. But you've got those tools in place and those foundations that help you feel in a sense of some kind of control, or at least you know what to do.
Yeah, it's interesting because if you're young and you're listening, you're like, oh my God, if you don't work out or lift weights, you feel like crap. I've been lately forming this thesis is this is the stuff we've always done and we should always have been doing. It's just that it's essential now, but you can't skip it because, but it's not stuff that is like new, like that we should have been doing, right? We should have been getting light. We should have been going for walks. We should have been lifting weights. We should have been eating enough protein. It's just, you had those hormones there bolstering you up when you were young and foolish and didn't do all the things that you needed to do. I always worked out. I don't know that I would ever put two together that I hadn't been for a walk or been outside in 5 days. Like, I think it would take me 5 days to say, oh, I've just been working really hard and going from the parking garage to work to here. And now it will be like 1 day or a day and a half. Yes. It's like, you haven't been outside and I'm starting to feel really weird. So I don't know. I just like, I'm through menopause now, but I think it is a real calling kind of perimenopause to figure things out. And I'm curious about the drinking because I don't know if you were drinking because you were so anxious, right? I know I drank in my 40s in perimenopause when I didn't know I was in it. I know it was very tempting because I would deal with the anxiety a week. And then by the weekend, I would just be so sick of my head and the thoughts that I would just want to get drunk and not think about it. It would just be like, I was self-medicating. But what are you supposed to do when you're just plagued by anxiety for 5 days in a row? I don't know. What's that been like for you to quit?
Yeah, exactly. It was very much that, and especially during COVID as well, that whole time when it was just, we were all locked up and it was quite stressful and all that stuff. What was it like to quit? So it took a year or two, I would say, of making the decision, going maybe 6 months without drinking and then having a drink and then being like, nope, it's not for me. And then starting again. But it's honestly been the best thing I've ever done for myself. It has enriched my life in so many ways that I would recommend it to anyone. It has really served me. And at the same time, yes, it was a crutch that I would use to cope with anxiety and to cope with stress and to numb or distract or not have to look at those pieces of myself that are difficult to look at. There is some deep work that goes with, in my opinion, that goes with perimenopause. You do have to start looking at yourself. And alcohol was a very good way of distracting you from doing those things.
Mhm. Yeah. Did you have a hard time in your social circle?
I think that my best friends were very supportive. They were very much, yep, you do what you need to do. And my husband was like, oh, he loves a glass of red wine. That was like one of the main things we always did together, was just like have a bottle of wine or whatever. But he got his little Coravan single pourer that he sticks in his bottle, and now he'll have one glass at a time. And it stopped him from drinking as much too. And when you look at all those brain benefits and all the reduction in breast cancer risk and all of those things, which in all honesty, I didn't think about at the time. When I was giving up alcohol, I wasn't thinking about any of those things. I was literally thinking about my own personal sense of how I would show up in the world. And if I wanted to be a better me, then alcohol needed to leave my picture, in all honesty.
You mentioned the work that perimenopause calls you to do. What's some of the work that you have done?
I've done quite a lot, honestly. I think there are so many. Where do I even start with that? I think there's so many things that we've been through our lives that there's a lot of trauma, obviously, that a lot of people go through that you never really unpack, and that just shows up in your life in patterns. And when you start to unpack those patterns of things that keep happening in your life, and you really take a look at, okay, what's happening here? There's self-sabotage, and there's you're abandoning yourself, and there's not keeping integrity with yourself. All of these things that are very difficult to they're not fun to look at. They're very murky. But once you start to look at those things, and I've worked with healers and people to help me, this is not something I've done by myself, then to work with somebody to help you work through those and to you're like lightening the load, which seems to assist you through this period of perimenopause when things do feel heavier.
Do you think, I feel like those are the things that are breaking through. You don't have the production of the hormones as much, and they're like popping up like a lid with a pot with a lid on it that's like coming off.
Yes.
That's looking back, that's how it feels. It's like you have these unconscious things that you're unconscious, you're not aware of them, and then they're dogging you. Like they're they're coming out. I don't know. Did it feel like that for you?
Yeah, I think so. And I also think there's an openness that needs to happen, in that and I see a lot of people are like, nope, I'm like refusing to look at those things. Like some people are just, they need to get to the point where they can look at those things. You have to open yourself up and be prepared and willing to do this journey. And as you've referred to it so many times as the heroine's journey, which I love that so much, because that is what it is. It is, I think about it in the way of power, of how can I cultivate my own power, physical power, obviously, which we lose as we get older, but my personal power. How am I cultivating personal power within myself? By creating boundaries and then sticking to them, and by saying no to things, but also doing the hard things that you don't want to show up for yourself for. But even being consistent and being disciplined is personal power. And it's the greatest form of self-love that you can possibly give to yourself.
Yeah.
And the way that I started thinking about it is, you think about, I like to think about two people, and that is my 80-year-old self and my 8-year-old self.
Aww.
And how can I make those two people proud on a daily basis?
That's so funny you say that, because I've been just asking my 90-year-old self like advice, and always right away, if I'm doing something should I invest in this for my business? It's always yes. Like there's always an unmitigated, of course you would do that. What are you going to not do that? And I just think I don't know, because I wish I did it my whole life. But I love the young too, because what a different version of yourself. What a pure version when you're that young.
And what I've seen is some people are actually getting a picture of themselves at 8 or however old, their young version, and putting it somewhere prominent And then, yes, and then asking yourself, would I make this decision for you? Would I allow this for you, for that person, for that version of me? And so many things that we do, we would be like, F no, I would never do that for that little precious soul. And yet, we are putting up with it and doing these things to ourselves. And it's let's just remember that we are that person. And we are also that 80-year-old person that we need to cherish and make good decisions for and build ourselves up for.
Oh my God, this is amazing. Yeah, this is absolutely amazing. I don't know who told me to get the young picture. I have myself in kindergarten with my best friend. It probably looks really weird to people, but I don't care because,
Yes.
yeah, you need to remember and also to give that person inside you a lot of attention. Because when you
Yeah.
get upset, have you, like, you feel like, are you through menopause? Or are you still in?
I'm in it.
You're in it. You're in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
What about everyone's so obsessed with weight and their
Yes.
face? I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I am too. What about the problems women have with their weight in their 40s? I know your program focuses a lot on inflammation. How do you describe to people what's happening?
Yeah, so obviously there are these metabolic changes that are happening that just occur with the loss of estrogen as we go through perimenopause and menopause, and the shift into being more insulin resistant, to having more inflammation in the body, and the effects that has on our mitochondria and our energy capacity. The way I like to look at it is that your whole system has changed. And the approach of that we've always taken of just eating less, calorie restriction, depriving ourselves. At this point in time, we are already deprived. Like our body is deprived of estrogen, which it's used to, estrogen and progesterone, but also we're losing muscle, we're losing bone, we are burning through those micronutrients like magnesium and B6 just because of stress and all of the way that your body is scrambling around and trying to do those processes that estrogen and progesterone were doing for so many years. Finding a new way to do that, it requires a lot of cofactors and enzymes, and it requires nourishment. And so the mistake that women make is that they're like, oh, okay, I'm going to fast through breakfast. I'm going to have this tiny salad for lunch, and I'm going to restrict, and then I'm going to eat healthy. And then they get to dinner time or the afternoon and they are starving, obviously. They've got brain fog, they can't think. And then they're in this perpetual cycle of just restricting and binging, whether that's binging in the evening and the afternoon or whether it's on the weekends, because you just can't sustain that state of deprivation. And what's really required for fat loss, as well as just overall well-being, is nurturance. We need to nurture our body with the food that we're eating, with the movement that we're giving to ourselves, with the sleep that we're attempting to get, and just with the way that we manage stress. It's a whole ecosystem of it's some people think, oh, I just have to like just restrict my calories and I'll lose weight. But it's just not that simple. It's a lot more complex, and it requires a multifaceted and multi-pronged approach. And at the center of that approach, in my opinion, is this very important sense of grace and compassion for ourselves, and a sense of nurturance of ourselves, of I need to nourish my body in order to actually thrive. Because if we're depriving ourselves of all those nutrients just because we're not eating enough and not eating enough of the right foods, we will feel way worse than if you would just feel so much worse. And that makes your symptoms worse, makes your cortisol worse. Like you're in this stress state, inflammation. And I like to approach it from that way, in that we're looking at what we're adding to our plate to nourish our bodies, as opposed to like, you can't eat this and you can't eat this and you can't eat this. It's like, how can I properly nurture myself and nourish myself at this time? But also, what I find is very important when it comes to fat loss, but also thriving and feeling better, is it's reconnecting to ourself and reconnecting back to what's our vision for our life. So many of us as women in midlife probably haven't considered what we want for ourselves since either we were 18 and choosing our university course, or like getting married and having a baby or whatever. Like, I want to get married and then I want to have a kid. And that's like the dream for your life. And then you're in midlife and suddenly you're in this perimenopause, menopause where you're struggling, but you don't have a strong sense of purpose of what do you want your life to look like? What's important to you? What's your purpose? We all have a purpose. Can we reconnect to it? And the women that are able to really reconnect to that deeper why of, well, why do I want to lose weight? And it's not just to feel confident in my swimsuit. That may be part of it, but it's because you want to lead this life that is fulfilling and that is purposeful, and that you're bringing all that experience and like all of that wisdom and grit that you've brought with you, all those things that you've overcome, and then pouring that into something that is fresh for this new chapter. And I think that if we can revive that within ourselves, then that gets us actually so much further forward, because it motivates us to create the body that will build that life.
Yeah. Those are just the habits. It's not like the weight loss. It's never a magical thing. Even when you work out and you get in really good shape, I've done that in my life and it's great, but then everything else is there. But I think there is this thing in your 40s, and I never had kids or got married, but I still had it because I had reached what I wanted to do and had this sort of boredom and ennui and like dissatisfaction, but not knowing it, because your career is where you want it to be, right? But that's not.
Yep.
And so even if you had a purpose, sometimes you need a new purpose. And I just think this is a really, like, I just love that you kicked on that, because I think if you don't pay attention to that, and it's really hard if you've poured yourself into your kids and your family, right? Like I have friends who I don't even think they know or have an idea what you would want to do, but to start thinking about it is such an important, to start thinking about your vision for yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It really is. And when women take the opportunity and the time it's an investment in yourself to take that time and connect to your heart and ask yourself, like, what do I want for myself? What is what gifts do I have that I want to give to the world? What is my mission? What is my purpose? And I guess the reason that that's come out for me is that I never launched What the Menopause to be what it is. I never realized that's what it would turn into. But in doing that, I refound my purpose in life.
Yeah.
And when I work with women, I'm on these coaching calls every Monday. This is like the best time of my week. This hour of just talking to women, working with women, and having this circle of women who are supporting each other. And it is just the most soul fulfilling, gratifying thing that I could ever do. And it's just, everybody has to feel this, because it gives you a sense of what a beautiful future we have.
Also, I think to create something out of nothing, you don't have to become an entrepreneur. You don't have to start your own platform. But I know for me, so that part is cool, but also just that I have a completely new phase of journalism where I now know I can do tons of other things and be independent. And I could never see outside of the newsroom. That was just a small part of it. But whatever it is, we're in such a cool time. And also, midlife women are pretty cool now. I feel like it's our time.
I'm so inspired by midlife women, and you are a trailblazer. You're a trailblazer. When did you start this?
2020. Yeah.
You have been at this and doing this and spreading this very positive and truthful word that is so needed in this space now more than ever. And just this, you bring a balance and a common sense that sometimes gets lost. Like, people are so confused, but it's so refreshing. And I really admire that about how firmly you stand in what you're bringing to the world. I really appreciate it, honestly.
Oh, thank you. I got into it because I could see this happening, and it's only gotten like more entrenched. And I just feel like it's so silly, right? Like having an argument over what's better. We're so individual too. Something works well for like my best friend took hormone therapy and slept like that week. I take hormones and think bad things happen. It doesn't work. I've tried, but it doesn't work. That's just two people, right? So what's the point of arguing? Like her and I could sit and argue about what they do or don't do. But yeah, it's funny. It's interesting on social media for sure. It's like that'll test you and help you grow.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But also I just think, as you say, it is so individual. And I just get so many women who are terrified and they're like, I can't take hormone therapy and am I going to get Alzheimer's disease? What do I do? And I'm like, no, get out and move your body, use your weights. Like these are the, obviously hormone therapy has an amazing, and I'm not a doctor and
Yeah, me
that
neither.
is important to note, but there are so many ways that you can look after yourself. And hormone therapy is such a new thing, and yet we've survived for millennia without it.
I know
It can't be the answer.
it feels like such a weird no-brainer to me because it's like, yeah, okay. So that makes sense. Like half of us were created to be fine, to be okay. And then half of us were given this like timer. Like this doesn't make any sense. And I was talking to an evolutionary geneticist. She's coming up
Ooh,
on the podcast. And she was saying it drives her nuts because hormone therapy is very helpful. You don't have to make up stuff about it. Like you don't have to like it's very helpful, but we all know there's been so many women who've been totally fine into their 90s and even 100 with it and sharp. And there's mountains
yeah,
of evidence for the other things, but there are truly women who are going on hormone therapy. Like I got emails, I'm sure you do all the time, of people saying, I haven't gone on it, but I need to go on it. I got to prevent dementia. I'm like, no one's saying it prevents dementia, by the way. It may, but
it
right
may,
now,
absolutely. But as
yeah,
you post that I really appreciated from you, and because the way that I've thought about it for a while is like it's like biohacking, right? It's like optimization.
yeah,
So it's not one of those things where you must do it, but it's health optimization. So
yeah.
that's how I see it personally.
Yeah.
But also,
It's a powerful thing. I don't think you should be FOMO into it. You should have all the
no,
information. So but I get it. People are very enthusiastic. And I think some of the doctors that are super enthusiastic, they see the women who are super struggling and they probably see the women who respond most to it. That's their window.
yeah,
And then they come from a mainstream. And I thank goodness for them because this has all happened because of people on different continents who just sprung up around the same time. And obviously, there's just an article in the New York Times about why does everyone, or was it the New Yorker? It's like, why does every generation think they're the first people to have menopause? And I was laughing because it's like, yeah, we did. I did actually, because
yeah,
we are the
yeah,
first generation to have it like this. Like,
yes.
and so much is happening right now. So we're acting like we're the first people to have menopause. What?
Exactly. Yeah, if we can do that, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
Also,
It's a good time.
it is the world that we live in, right? It is just the stress and the environment, and like it is taking its toll. Women holding down so much, and this is something that I talk to my clients about all the time. Is just look at yourself for a second. Look at everything that you're holding
Yeah.
in the world. You're going through a divorce and your kids are whatever, like one of your kids is sick and you've sold your house and you're trying to pay the bills and all this. And your parents are aging and you're holding so much. And at the same time, you're going through this seismic change
Yeah.
within your body that is making things a lot more difficult. And yet here you are,
Yeah.
showing up for yourself, taking agency, doing what you need to do. Like it's beautiful. Women are literally superheroes.
I know we are. There's this
Way.
funny dating show on Netflix called Later Daters, and it's
Okay.
people are in their 50s and 60s, but there's a dating coach on it, and she said about this one woman in her 50s, she said she's an example of women in their 50s have a really hard time letting go because they're holding up everyone. And I got a little like, because that's how we've been operating for a very long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
You're doing amazing things, and I'm so happy for you. And I'm so glad to finally connect with you. You're just as lovely as I thought you would be.
Oh, bless
What
you.
have you
No,
got that
thank
people can engage with? Tell us.
Yeah, so I have my signature program, which is Powerful Peri to Post. Obviously, you can find me at What the Menopause for your laughs and education. But yeah, my signature program is Powerful Peri to Post, and this really looks at nutrition, movement, lifestyle, and it's a 30-day program. But yeah, come and visit me, What the Menopause, and that is the place where I am on the internet.
Yeah, check her out. It's super funny. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Welcome. Thank you, Anne Marie.
Oh, that was lovely.
Hot Flash Inc. was created and is hosted by Anne Marie McQueen, produced and edited by Sonia Mack. The information contained in this podcast is intended for informational purposes only and is not intended for the purpose of diagnosing, treating, curing, or preventing any disease. Before using any products referenced on the podcast, consult with your healthcare provider, read all labels, and heed all directions and cautions that accompany the products. Information received through the podcast should not be used in place of a consultation or advice from a healthcare provider. If you suspect you have a medical problem, i.e. menopause or anything else, or any healthcare questions, please promptly see your healthcare provider. This podcast, including Anne Marie McQueen and any producers or editors, disclaim any responsibility from any possible adverse effects from the use of any information contained herein. Opinions of guests on this podcast are their own, and the podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about a guest's qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements and advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. This podcast is owned by Hot Flash Inc. Media.